Hi, everyone. Welcome to What Just Happened. Today, I'll be sitting down with Shawn Nelson, CEO of Lovesac. Welcome, Shawn. It's really great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's start about you. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I am most famous as the Lovesac guy. I made a big beanbag when I was 18 years old to be funny, and it turns out everyone loved it. It was never a beanbag. It's full of shredded foam. My parents' camping mattresses chopped up on a paper cutter in the basement kind of thing. And it would be 3 years after that, when I was 21, that I started the business called Lovesac while I was in college at the University of Utah, and began selling to friends and neighbors and family, and everyone who got one had a friend who wanted one, and it became my little side hustle through college. Got a huge order from a trade show. After that, right at graduation, had to build a factory using farm equipment on credit cards, and then opened our own store in 2001 called Lovesac because none of the furniture stores were having us. And on a wing and a prayer, made that work. And in fact, it exploded, and we began franchising and a whole litany of craziness involved as we grew from one store to 30 or 40. And then I won a reality TV show with Richard Branson. Then we raised private equity. Then we had to file Chapter 11 because they wanted to bankrupt us and start over, and moved the company to Connecticut for a decade, only to invent Sactionals, which is the core of our business today, which grew us to 100 million for an IPO in 2018, to 300 locations today at now 700 plus million, whatever, and still going strong with new products coming and everything else.
Now, your book is Let Me Save You 25 Years.
Yeah, it's called Let Me Save You 25 Years, Mistakes, Miracles, and Lessons from the Lovesac Story.
All right, give me one mistake, one miracle, one lesson.
My favorite mistake is how I immediately took my own advice, lesson one of the book, just do something. And after opening our first store and seeing some success, I immediately went out and opened a second and a third and a fourth. When upon reflection, what I should have done is actually hired great people to work that store while I stood in the corner and really took the time to assess, why is this working so well? Is it a great product? Is it the music? Is it the big screen TV in the corner? Is it the vibe? Is it the location? Is it Salt Lake City? Because every store I opened after that was its own special snowflake. Some did great, others did poorly. And I was ill prepared to do that as well as I should have done. So that was mistake number one, just charging off and doing something, which ironically is my first piece of advice in the book. So these pieces of advice can conflict with each other, but mistakes, miracles, a miracle. I'll give you a fun one. The name Lovesac, which is a sticky name. You can like it or hate it. Who cares? You're not forgetting it. It's not lost in the sea of nameless names. And it's been very successful. It's allowed us to get the ticker Love on Wall Street, LOVE, which I'm very proud of, and build a culture around love and make it fun and interesting, attaching sac to it. Anyway, that trademark was taken since 1978. And we only discovered this. We registered the business in Utah in 1998, and it was fine as a registered business, but we could never get the national trademark, which didn't matter to us when it was a side hustle. But when we tried to franchise the business, we obviously had to have the national trademark. We then had to begin to disclose to our franchisees that we don't even have the trademark on the name hanging over our door. We have to pick a different name. Here you're trying to buy a franchise of this business. So it was that first Christmas, 60 days into even having a store, and we had quickly gotten ourselves franchise worthy. I said, man, before we have to disclose this and change our name and everything, let's try one more time. And the year had just rolled over to the new year, 2002. And sure enough, after all those years, I guess after 24 years of registration, they failed to register it that year. And we picked it up off uspto.gov for $250. And I consider that a well-timed miracle, one of many that kind of keeps me going through all this time. And so mistakes, miracles, and lessons. The book is full of lessons, and probably one that has stuck with me for the longest time. I wrap up the book with this Shawnism: embrace top ambition with infinite patience. Patience is a lesson that most young, brash, bold entrepreneurs that are encouraged with my Shawnism one, just do something. Patience is a lesson that can only be learned with time. And what's amazing, and people ask me this all the time, like, how is it, Shawn, that like, you're 26 years in now to Lovesac? How can you still be so stoked about it? The vision for Lovesac has evolved a ton, right? Where it began as just, we were just trying to survive. We made this little startup to be funny. We now have a point of view that I think can carry us on to become a Nike, I don't know, an Apple, a Tesla, a legendary brand that I think can be into the many billions. I really believe this, but that didn't exist in the beginning. And now that I'm 26 years in, I think, why not go 26 more? If I have the fortitude to go this long, I could go twice as long. Why not? And once you've made that kind of a decision, everything becomes easy. Tariffs, terrible times, bad economics, whatever, doesn't really faze you when your point of view is nothing but long-term. And so it's a lesson that could only come with time for me, but I'm a big believer. And by the way, if something in the middle changed my trajectory or changed my reality, that's okay too. But it's that point of view, it's that long-term point of view. It's not about complacency, it's about patience. So maintaining top ambition with infinite patience. That's probably the last lesson in the book that I continue to learn each passing year.
I have two questions for you. The first is how quickly you went to franchise. It's like you read it in a business book from like 1980. You're like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Branson took you to the side and he's like, kid, here's how you make real money. So I want to talk about that. But also, why didn't you have anyone around you telling you no? You cast them aside? Were they like, you're going too slowly. You're not the vibe. This happens in brands. You're not on my vibe.
These are good questions, astute questions. So your first question, why franchise so quickly? Where did that come from? This was just me doing the next thing. So the second Shawnism in the book, right? Do something. Shawnism to do the next thing. So people were coming in the door it was 10 days in, and I'm there working in the mall, finally paying myself to work at Love. We're 3 years into the business, and I finally get to pay myself to work part-time in the mall, having just graduated university. And I'm selling Sacs, and we had the big screen TV, playing cool movies, music bumping. People were coming in, flopping down. We didn't even know if they'd take us seriously, but sure enough, it was such a vibe. People wanted to take that home with them. They weren't just buying foam and fabric. And sure enough, 10 days in, someone says to me, this is cool. Like, where else are they? Who do I talk to about a franchise? And I saw this happening. My cousin, who was also working with me, pulled out my card and said, here, call this guy. He's like the head guy. And I ran out of the store, and I was out on the bridge at the Gateway Mall, and I answered my phone from an out-of-state number, Lovesac Corporation. And he says, hey, I want to talk to you about a franchise. And I said, oh, great. What location are you in? He said, oh, your Salt Lake location. I said, oh, that's a good one. It's the only location, but it's me. You fake it till you make it. And that's what tipped me off into the idea of franchising. Holy cow, this person wanted to give me $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for the privilege of opening a Lovesac store, which meant my factory could make more Lovesacs, which means I'd have a store in Arizona, which I was so stoked about. Listen, in hindsight, clearly it may not have been strategic remotely, and it may not have even been the right move. But it's a 25-year-old being a 25-year-old and going for it. Now, your second question, which is related, right? Why didn't I have anyone around me telling me no or give me better advice? It was just me and my buddies trying to keep this thing alive, from the college days to the first factory to the first big order, which had us build the factory, to this first store. And so none of us really knew what we were doing. And to some degree, I still try, listen, this is tricky. I still try to maintain that same naivety, because it was exactly our naivety that we could open a giant beanbag store in a mall next to Pottery Barn or Abercrombie and Fitch. That's actually a ridiculous proposition. In fact, the malls first rejected us before they finally said, okay, we'll let you in temporary for Christmas. Don't embarrass us. As it turns out, we built Lovesac into one of the top performing retailers in the United States of America. If you were to measure it on a sales per square foot basis, do the math. I'm selling giant sectional sofas now. that are $5, $10, $15, $20,000 a whack, still out of 800 square feet. This is a really potent business. I only have 3, 4, 5 employees in a location total, where the competitors that sell something like that have 20 or 30 or 50. And so Lovesac is a very unique business that only evolved because of our naivety. And I try to stay naive, because if you listen to the experts, they'll tell you everything's wrong. Now, on the other hand, when I finally could afford talent beyond me and my buddies, and I brought them on, older people that knew more than me, I was too young and cocky and brash to listen to them. I did listen to them, but I was in that mode where I had to approve everything and make every decision and put my stamp on everything so I could feel like I'm the CEO, like I'm the man. And that took me a couple of decades and getting kicked in the teeth a couple hundred times to really get over and start to really realize, after cycling those people on to the next. And now the team I have now, which, by the way, I have executives from Walmart, from Nike, from the best companies on the planet working with me. They are amazing, and I've learned to trust them. And I've learned that I should rarely have to assert my CEO position, or, by the way, even rarely necessarily even make many decisions, because I have so many talented people around me to make them. But it took me a long time, not just to trust them, but also to get over my own ego and learn that, by the way, even if I would do it differently, doesn't mean that my way's better. In fact, it is more likely my way's wrong. And so it's the rare occasion, not never, but it's the rare occasion that I assert myself that way today. And thankfully, I've been able to afford and attract and retain top talent. And that didn't come overnight either.
The reason why it probably works is because probably in between personalities, and whether or not, even if they truly are a fit, and what that means from a non-quantifiable standpoint, there are goals now. There's written goals. There's like, how are we going to get from here to there? And everyone's going in the same direction. And it makes it somewhat easier when you're not in reactive mode. And I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth. I would guess that's part of the reason you're more stable, and it's okay. We're gonna lay out and accomplish certain things and maintain fluidity in case something great comes along, because that's the fun.
Lovesac was nothing but reactive in our earliest days. And thankfully, we reacted quickly and we jumped on things. We took advantage, and we were obviously risk averse. Building the first factory on credit cards, opening the first store on my cousin's credit cards, because mine were maxed out from the factory. We went for it, but we are nothing but strategic today. But again, this is after a decade and a half of learning the ramifications of doing stuff in many respects the wrong way for so long, in so many different aspects, whether it's strategy, whether it's hiring, whether it's just management, whether it's my own behavior. And I'm still on that learning path. That's one of our, what we call table stakes value. One of our table stakes values at Lovesac is being an insatiable learner. So behind me, you'll see all these books, and it's an interesting background, but I read all these books. Like, I am a crazy person when it comes to books, when it comes to learning, when it comes to growing and trying to keep myself sharp and on the cutting edge. Because when it's almost like the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know, which is a trite thing to say, but a very real feeling.
It's interesting to hear you talk about table stakes values. Can you tell me 2 more?
Sure. It's part of our strategic guide at Lovesac, carving our values into buckets, as opposed to just having like core value. Everyone talked about core values, right? But the problem is, we've probably all worked for companies that radically violate their own stated beliefs on the wall. And by the way, there's nothing more deleterious to a culture than being a hypocrite, bald face. And the argument that Lencioni makes in this wonderful book, right? I talk about books and constantly learning. He writes this wonderful book called The Advantage. And he talks about how the reason many companies appear to be hypocritical to their employees is they don't segregate their table stakes values from their core values, from their aspirational values, right? So aspirational values are what we want to be, what we're not. And when we put those on the wall as core values, we look like hypocrites. Table stakes values are often obvious. and shouldn't be core because they're not unique to us. It's honesty, integrity, those sorts of things. But they're important because for me, what they've become is the filter for how I hire. So you asked for two more table stakes values. I'll use self-aware as a big one, right? Is this person I'm sitting across from considering hiring self-aware? Because for me, that's the root of all success. If we're self-aware, it's much more likely we can achieve success in life. Another one is, are they willing to sweep floors? This is how we began at Lovesac. There's not a job at Lovesac I haven't done. From literally stuffing sacks to selling them and not just selling them when I drop in at Christmas. I'm talking hours and weeks and years of my life spent refining the art of talking people into buying our gigantic, not beanbags, or helping them understand the product, etc. So there's nothing that I wouldn't do. There's nothing I would ask an employee or a partner to do that I have not done that I'm not willing to do today, right now. And it's not about sweeping floors, right? Because it's not very efficient at my salary today as a public company for me to be sweeping floors. But if it came down to it, would I? And do my people know that I would? And I'm looking for that in candidates. So table stakes values are just as critical as core values to understand. You can't even come here. You're not even allowed at the table unless you are most of these things on this list. And there's 4 or 5 others as well. Hire people that you can get along with. They don't have to be your best friends. They probably shouldn't be. But the antithesis, obviously, don't hire people who you just can't possibly get along with.
Speaking about hiring, you recently made a big hire, or the organization made a big hire, and you have a new CMO. I think it's a poach. Are we calling it a poach? It's a poach. Come on.
Yeah, it's a good call out. So yes, super proud to onboard Heidi Cooley, former CMO of Crocs. I won't say we poached her, but we're very grateful to have gotten her, even to have her interest in her and the validation that comes from being able to hire from amongst the best. And our point of view is, look, if she can do what she did with Crocs, which at one point in their early tenure were utilized in certain movies because they were so ridiculous. And look at this brand that was built from that singular product. I believe we can do perhaps even greater things with Lovesac. That's my hope.
It's a huge hire, and I really congratulate you. And it will be, for her and the company, a huge accomplishment.
Look, something as pivotal as a CMO, a chief marketing officer, for a company whose stated mission, not our purpose. Okay, our purpose, I'll go there, is to inspire humankind to buy better stuff so they can buy less stuff, which is a weird purpose for a company that sells stuff to have, but we're passionate about it. It speaks to the longevity of our products and everything we represent. But our mission, we separate those two. Our mission, like what we're trying to achieve, we're trying to build the most loved brand in the world. Think about that for a second. The most loved brand. And that's probably going to take a few more decades, and it's going to take tremendous marketing prowess, tremendous brand chops to get us to that state if we can get there.
When they get there, when you are the most loved brand.
Thank you.
And it is a little bit like, okay, Crocs can jump in and out of cultural events with those little thingies that go in, or colors, or branding. I'm very eager to see how that translates.
Yeah. You and me both. Look, I think Lovesac is already in the mix there. And what I mean by that is, let's zoom out, right? If you read the Wall Street analyst take on this company called Lovesac, we're most often compared to Restoration Hardware, Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, West Elm, Williams-Sonoma, on down the list, because most of our business is $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 sectional sofas that are very nice. Ours are unique and do all these cool things, but that's our comp set. We also show up at the X Games. We were just an integral part of Shaun White's launch of Snow League. We half the NBA, half the NFL, half the MLB, hockey players even own our product, live on our product, promote our product. Hollywood, celebrity after celebrity in their homes, whether it's the giant sacks, which they themselves are a conversation piece, or our crazy modular washable sofas that are great for any family, even if you're mega rich. And Lovesac's in pop culture in a way that the competitors I listed are not. They're not showing up at those events. We're involved in pop culture in a way that a lot of our competitors they could show up, but it might be weird. We're somehow, just because of our history, because of how we came up, because of our products, it's always felt natural. It's always worked for us. So I think Heidi has a lot to work with at Lovesac. And while it may or may not be a one-to-one play, the exact tactics that worked for Crocs may not be the exact same tactics that worked for Lovesac. I think if Lovesac had a cousin in the footwear business, someone who's in the business big time, but an outlier, weird, doing things differently, it's probably Crocs. And it's not a perfect analogy, but it's a good one. And I'm excited as well to see what we can do with new, fresh take and talent. I have built just an incredible team. And so to break it down for you, let's start with Mary Fox. Is just an incredible executive, former Walmart executive, ran a $9 billion business there, executive at L'Oreal, executive at president of BIC before she came to Lovesac, BIC North America. And so her operational expertise, I will never have in my life. I did not go to those schools. I did not train in those machines. And I'm so grateful to be able to attract, afford, and retain people like that. And that's my number one job, is exactly that, right? To attract and retain people of that ilk to run this business. And thankfully, she manages so much of the day-to-day. And it allows me to focus on all of our PR efforts, all of our public company efforts, investor interface, as well as, of course, product. Product is like my baby. And I wouldn't be blessed with the bandwidth to be as connected as I am to the customer and the product unless I had not just Mary, but people like Mary around me at every level, from supply chain to technology to accounting, our CFO, people. And so it wasn't always this way. There was a time when I was on my futon at 11 p.m., having just closed down the store, maybe driven by the factory on the way home to make sure it was locked, reconciling our American Express statements, trying to match them up to our QuickBooks output at the store, handling the accounting. I'm not above doing any job here. And thankfully, I had just enough skill to get us from here to there until I could afford the next great hire. And that's tricky. That's why successful entrepreneurs are somewhat rare, because you have to be able to bridge lots of gaps.
Do you want to talk about tariffs?
I believe Lovesac is at least on the edge, if not always on the cutting edge. And thankfully, we have not relented. In 2018, the first Trump tariffs hit the furniture category really hard, first 10%, then 25%. And we had already been working on counter-sourcing our products in other countries, particularly in Southeast Asia. The thing that makes us unique in the home category is not that we manufacture in Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia and China and India and Taiwan and America. It's that we drive redundant manufacturing in those geographies. And that's what's so unique. All of our competitors are manufacturing in all those places and more, but they have one category of goods coming from this country, another category coming from that country. So when things like this happen again in 2025, there are whole lines of products that are being discontinued by companies that I'm familiar with because they haven't done the work in this gap. So we got the memo. We were already on the path. We were able to counter-source really fast back in 2018, and we just kept pushing and pushing to not only be out of China primarily, we're down to single digits there, and we'll cut it off completely now, but to be in these other countries redundantly. So what I'm expressing is most of my business, like Sactionals, are made of, you buy a bunch of seats, you buy a bunch of sides, you build anything you want. So those seats and sides are like half the business. So I don't just make them in any one of those countries. I make them in all of those countries. And so when COVID hit, for instance, another big supply chain disruption, we never ran out of stock. Why? Because when ports were closing in China or in Vietnam, we were pulling more from Malaysia. And they're indistinguishable to the customer. And that redundant supply chain gives us a lot of resiliency where others do not have it, even if they have dispersed supply chains. And I think it's not just unique to how we've operated. It's unique. It ties all the way back to the product design, right? Like our product is uniquely flexible and uniquely the same. This Sactional seat that I'm sitting on one of my chairs right now. The seat is 18 years old. It's older than my oldest daughter. It's moved with us through 3 different states, 6 different times, been made into sectionals and sofas, and now this chair. And it's mated with brand new pieces, and even Stealth Tech, our hidden surround sound system, all that, if I want it to be, because the things we make are both reverse compatible and future compatible. We didn't begin with that vision. We just were trying to make couches that did all these cool things and solve all these problems. But along the way, the chicken that is Sactionals has hatched the egg that is designed for life, which means things that are built to last a lifetime but can evolve with you as your life changes. When that's the way you think about product, and everything we design here on out lives to that ethos, it allows us not only to have better products that will compete in the marketplace and build a brand that's unique to customers because it's associated with a different kind of quality, a different kind of performance, but finally enables a supply chain that is hyper resilient, what I described. And the fundamental reason is because we are driving demand for sameness, not novelty. Almost every business that we compete with, it's new season, new collection, new designer, new. And so if I challenge you, I just met you, Christine, you've got a couch in your life. It's probably not a Lovesac. And if I said to you, hey, you know what, just go get some new cushions for it because those ones are getting tired, but the rest of the couch is fine. Could you? What model do you have?
That's a very sore subject, dude. I just went through sofa hell.
See? And by the way, I don't even have to know you to know that. But had you somewhere along the line been interrupted by us and convinced into buying Sactionals, whether you believed in sustainability or not, you might wake up 8 or 18 years later, call us up and say, you know what? I know it's a long shot. I bought this from you so long ago. I just want to add on. I need another cover set. I need another cushion. My big fat dog has squished this one to nothing. The answer is yes. We don't even discontinue fabrics for that reason. We move them to our custom order list. And so how satisfying is that to a customer? Now, what am I getting at? By explaining some of this to you and convincing you to get onto our platform for these reasons, let alone you liked it or you thought it was pretty or whatever. You have a bunch of kids or dogs and you need a resilient couch. For whatever reason you bought it, you're going to discover these things over time. You're going to love our brand more. And my supply chain is going to be more diverse because we have compelled you to buy into a platform of sameness, not newness, where everything else we buy is about new. So we do provide a level of changeability with the covers and even the styles, the arm styles, all that. But the core product is all about sameness. And that will allow me eventually, by the way, to move my supply chain back to America because I can use robots to manufacture these exact same pieces if I want, because of the sameness that we're going to create demand for decades to come, because that's what we're selling you. We're not selling you just newness. We're selling you sameness. No one is thinking this way, I don't think. I think it's very unique to Lovesac. I think it's a reason that our supply chain is resilient and the reason our business and brand will be resilient in the long term. Lovesac is on a very unique path that will bring our manufacturing closer to the user. And if we get the luxury of going international, which we will, I pray that we can be making our products in Europe for Europe and onward. And that's the vision. And it's a more sustainable vision in every way that word means anything, not just sustainability as we hear it, but like more competitive, more resilient, more sustainable, because the stuff sustains, like this chair I'm sitting on. And that's how we think at Lovesac. The truth is, it goes beyond the product. Like I said, the chicken gave rise to the egg, and the egg is that ethos. And with that ethos, we will design and create all kinds of cool products that live up to this design for life standard. They'll be expensive, just like our couches are expensive, but they'll do the work. And I think that it will allow us to compete in a sea of commodities.
3 things you're going to do as a business going forward. One is marketing. Keep an eye on the marketing once you hired your new CMO.
But yeah.
2 is look to see robotics in the future in some way. And maybe you become that blueprint for other manufacturers to study and see as a success. And thirdly, diffusion into other products. I don't know what you can tell me, but I'm sure you have a long list of categories that can work. that you can apply those same principles and values to.
That's right. Yeah, our point of view on that is our territory is from the mailbox to the backyard fence. And while we don't intend to do all the things, because most of our competitors do all the things, they'll sell you a small trash can for your bathroom, or they'll sell you flatware. Like, we only do the big, meaningful stuff that matters in your life. And we try to live up to this Design for Life ethos. And so while our territory is big, the path is slow. And what we've announced is that we just launched a new couch line, which, believe it or not, Sactionals can be used as couches, but they're not often, for lots of reasons I won't get into. But so we have a new category of couches, as funny as that sounds. But beyond that, we have whole new rooms that we're entering into next year and the year beyond that as well. And keep your eye on Lovesac. The product development's happening faster than ever, and some big moves are coming.
New rooms and product development. Let's leave it there. That's amazing. Loved chatting with you. Loved your humility and your honesty and transparency. I really appreciate that.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's always a great conversation. Appreciate it.
That is what just happened. I'm Christine Russo.